Three spine-chilling, sinister true tales that expose haunted secrets and unexplained terror. Unfolding in the heart of a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio, dark shadows stretched and whispered secrets no one wanted to hear. Three tales at the edge of sanity, lurking like the unseen things in your closet, ready to unravel an ordinary life. Here's the spine-tingling truth. This wasn't just another tale of fright. It was Sarah and Jake's reality, a friendly facade pushing against a terrifying truth. Sarah, a single mother, fought to keep her life together, working the night shift at the local convenience store. The neon flickered like a dying star, casting an eerie glow on her weary face. Darkness enveloped their neat, white picket fence home while she worked, leaving her perceptive teenage son, Jake, to fend for himself against secrets that stirred in the alleys of their community. Each soft thud outside sent his heart racing. The shadows were alive tonight. One fateful evening, Jake ventured into the attic, seeking escape from the mundane. The musty air clung to him as he sifted through forgotten relics. Then he stumbled upon a weathered box. It was unmarked, almost pleading to be opened. When he pried it loose, a chill shot through him. Inside were disturbing letters, ink smudged and trembling with fear. Each scrawl spoke of Mr. Callahan, their reclusive neighbor, once trusted, a devoted community man now tangled in whispers of strange rituals and disappearances. "Things that don't happen in this neighborhood," Jake mumbled, his voice barely a whisper as he struggled against the swell of nausea constricting his throat. The letters felt like a curse, revealing his world's cracks, shadows of terror creeping closer. At the community center, Jake overheard hushed voices. Fear gripped the tight-knit group as murmurs of experiences surfaced, people's eyes darting nervously as they exchanged glances, shared chills of unexplained events, all threads connecting back to Mr. Callahan, the old man who had always been so kind, yet now was a figure wrapped in darkness. Jake's heart pounded as he watched two worlds colliding. Protecting his mother was a fervent need, but curiosity clawed at him. He decided it was necessary to meet Mr. Callahan, the source of this malevolence, despite the dread festering in his gut. The night he met the old man, he was greeted by a twisted smile, a contorted warmth. The man's eyes glinted with a predatory interest in Jake's family, unearthing a lineage twisted in pain and dread. The terrifying visions came next, shadowy figures dancing in his nightmares. Cold sweats drenched him. They whispered truths and warnings, nudging him closer to the very heart of horror. Meanwhile, Sarah navigated through her exhausting shifts, blissfully unaware of the festering fear gnawing at Jake. Her fatigue layered over their normal lives like a comforting blanket, a shallow shield against what lurked just beyond their door. The tension outside tightened like a noose, each encounter with Mr. Callahan pushing them toward inevitable confrontation. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The unspeakable truth clawed at Jake, threatening to unravel everything. As the clock ticked ominously, he realized the danger was nearer than he imagined. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was the entire neighborhood at stake. Just as he thought he was piecing everything together, a sharp knock echoed through their home, cold and commanding. A shiver raced through him. What did Mr. Callahan truly want, and what nightmare waited just beyond their front door? Jake's heart drummed in his chest, a wild rhythm fueled by fear. He stood frozen, staring at the door, willing it to remain shut. The knock echoed again, louder, more insistent. It shook him, visceral and ragged, as he glanced toward the window. The night was a cloak of darkness, the streetlights flickering like dying candles. He felt a tightening in his throat, a sick realization dawning on him. Mr. Callahan was here. Panic surged through him. Should he hide? Run? But where could he go? The letters from the attic rushed back, each chilling word screaming in his mind. He knows. What exactly did they know? With a deep, trembling breath, Jake moved closer to the door. The cold metal handle felt foreign under his palm, as if it belonged to someone else. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder at the dim light from the living room. Where was his mother? The realization stung. She was out there, unprotected. It was his responsibility to protect her. With a surge of determination, he turned the knob and opened the door a crack. The sight sent another wave of terror crashing over him. Mr. Callahan stood there, shadowed yet menacing. His smile was grotesque, stretched too broadly, his eyes glinting like darkened marbles reflecting something sinister. "Ah, Jake, how good to see you," he crooned, his voice dripping with a phony warmth that made Jake's skin crawl. "I wanted to drop by and see how you and your lovely mother were doing." Jake swallowed hard, his instincts screaming at him to slam the door, but he found himself rooted to the spot. The old man continued, each word wrapping around Jake like a heavy fog. "You know, I've always been fond of families, especially those who have roots in the community." He leaned in closer, the scent of something musty and decayed washing over Jake. "You're all so interesting." Before Jake could process the danger lingering in those words, he saw a flicker of movement behind Mr. Callahan. His heart fell as he strained to peer into the shadows behind the old man. More figures appeared, cloaked in darkness, faces obscured. There was no mistake, they were watching him. Jake slammed the door shut, dread pooling in every crevice of his mind. He stumbled back, the panic threatening to swallow him whole. "Mom!" he yelled, his voice trembling, echoing against the walls. Her figure appeared in the hallway, tired but alert, as she rubbed her eyes and turned to him with concern. "Jake, what's wrong?" "Callahan." He struggled to speak, his voice barely a whisper. "He's at the door. And there are others." Fear creased Sarah's face. She glanced toward the door, the sound of Mr. Callahan's laughter drifting ominously through the cracks. She moved closer, her maternal instinct kicking in, but Jake grasped her arm tightly. "You don't understand. He has something bad." Before Sarah could respond, the door shuddered under the weight of a heavy thump rattling on its hinges. A crack appeared, shadows splayed over the floor, eager to seep into their sanctuary. "Why don't you come outside, Jake?" Mr. Callahan called, a sing-song lilt twisted with darkness. "We can chat, like neighbors should." An insidious promise lingered in the air, thick enough to choke on. Jake's mind raced. What was Mr. Callahan really after? What did he mean? He turned to his mother, their eyes locking, understanding dawning. They were out of time. There was a choice to make. Fight or flee. The door rattled again, a visceral warning. As fear surged within them, a horrifying thought struck Jake. What if they were not the only ones in danger? What if all their neighbors were already caught in Mr. Callahan's web? The pounding intensified. With each strike, their world tilted on the edge of chaos. Uneasy decisions hovered before them, the sanity of their lives poised to crumble under the weight of dark secrets. "Mom, we need to do something, now." As they contemplated their escape, another voice hissed from the shadows, echoing around them, chilling yet close. "You can't escape what you are." Jake's breath hitched, and just like that a new reality gripped him, wrapping terror around his heart. What destiny awaited them? In the distance, a scream erupted, slicing through the night. What were they up against, and could they even survive till dawn? The door quivered violently, each pounding blow echoing through the house like a war drum. Jake's mind whirled with dread, and he grabbed his mother's arm tighter, willing her to understand the urgency filling the air. "We can't let them in, Mom. We need to get out, now. Sarah glanced nervously toward the door, her eyes reflecting a mix of confusion and fear. But where would we go? She leaned closer to him, her voice a frantic whisper. If we run out there, what about them? We don't know what's— Mom! He interrupted, his heart racing. We can't stay here. We have to find another way. The laughter outside grew louder, mocking their fear. Mr. Callahan's voice boomed with glee. I know you're in there, Jake. I can feel your little heart racing. The shivers that coursed through Jake made his stomach twist. There was something wrong with that man, something deeply unsettling that twisted his very soul. What does he want? Then, just as his mother opened her mouth to answer, the voice behind the door shifted. Maybe we should remind you, Jake. Everyone wants something. Cold sweat trickled down Jake's spine as he risked another glance at the door. The small crack that had opened during the last thud now revealed a narrow slice of darkness. He could see vague forms outside, subtle movements shifting in shadows. Something monstrous lurked beyond the entryway. Mom, the windows! He gasped, adrenaline sparking through his veins. We need to get to the back, now! But the door trembled again. With a loud crash, the wood splintered. Shadows seeped through the cracks, seeping into their world like dark smoke. Jake dragged Sarah toward the kitchen, pulling her behind him. The dim light flickered as they stumbled into the narrow passage, the air thick with fear. Panic surged in his chest, mounting with each heavy breath. Get the back door open, Jake urged, feeling her falter. Hurry! With shaking hands, Sarah scrambled to the back door, fumbling for the handle. The pounding on the front door continued, relentless, like the heartbeat of a great beast. Finally, with one last desperate shove, the door burst open, revealing the night outside. But the safety of the exterior was deceitful, cloaked in shadows that seemed to whisper of danger. Go! Jake pushed Sarah forward, but he hesitated, his instincts screaming for him to look back. The kitchen was bathed in gloom, but from the corner, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure slipped through the threshold, silhouetted against the darkened hallway. The familiar shape twisted with a kind of horror, something no longer human. Jake stepped back slowly, instinctively grabbing the piece of kitchenware that lay on the counter. An old knife, cold and comforting in his grip. Jake! Sarah called from the doorway, her voice quaking. Please, we can't stay here. Mum, But it was too late. There was a hiss, followed by laughter, and in that moment he knew they were surrounded. All hope of escape shattered like glass. The shadows morphed and converged, drawn by a pull darker than dread itself. Sweetheart, a voice crooned mockingly from behind the figure. It had become a chorus, an echoing morbid symphony of hushed whispers and laughter. You really can't escape. What you are. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. What I am, Jake echoed, confusion mixing with terror. What the hell did Callahan and this monster mean? Just as the lights flickered one last time and darkness enfolded everything, Jake caught a glimpse of something swirling, writhing in the chaos that surrounded him. A singular truth cut through the madness. Escape could cost them everything. As a hand reached toward him from the shadows, he knew the answer was racing away from him. A choice with impossible stakes. And then came a scream. The sound of his own voice lost within a brutal laughter as everything turned to silence. What awaited them now in the dark void? Was the truth that lurked within themselves the real horror? Jake's heart pounded in the silence that followed, each beat a countdown to a new horror. Darkness enveloped them, thick and suffocating. He couldn't see his mother, couldn't feel her presence. Panic coursed through him as he stumbled forward, searching. "Mom!" he shouted, choking on fear. His voice echoed back, swallowed by the void. A flicker of movement caught his peripheral vision. He turned, the knife trembling in his grip. A chill ran down his spine as he caught sight of the figure again. It was closer now, its features shifting like smoke. He couldn't tell if it was a man or something grotesque. "Jake." The voice slithered through the darkness, dripping with mock pity. "You can't leave. Not yet." Without thinking, Jake lunged for the kitchen doorway, desperate to reach Sarah. He had to find her. The air hummed with dread, each breath feeling like a climb uphill. Shaking, he fumbled through the shadowy passage, the knife slick and unwieldy in his grip. "Mom!" he yelled again, the echo dragging on like hopelessness. He stopped, forcing himself to listen. A faint whimper pulled at his heart, a sound he recognized too well. He rushed down what felt like an eternity of darkened space, the walls closing in. Finally he burst into the living room, the dim moonlight pouring in through a fractured window. The sight that met him froze his blood. Sarah was huddled in the corner, her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide and vacant, staring toward the door like a trapped deer. The air smelled of something metallic, sickeningly sweet. "Mom! We have to go!" But she didn't budge. Instead she started to rock, a low whimper escaping her lips. "Jake! He comes for us. He wants us." "No!" he shot back. "No one is taking you. Just look at me." He moved closer, blocking her line of sight from the door. Her gaze broke, confusion flickering in her eyes. "Jake, the laughter," she whispered. "It's everywhere." He gripped her shoulders firmly, shaking her slightly. "That's not real, Mom. We can't let it get into our heads." But as he spoke, the laughter echoed louder, incomprehensible voices weaving through it, each taunting and cruel. The darkness tugged at the edges of his mind, whispering sinister words he couldn't comprehend. Unfamiliar faces and shadows danced just out of reach, flickering like nightmares. "Come on!" Desperation clawed at him. Ducking low, he tucked his knife into the back of his pants and pulled her upright. "We're getting out!" Just then the door slammed open with a burst of cold air, darkness spilling in like a wave. The figure from before stepped through, its face obscured, an amalgamation of familiar horrors. Jake's vision blurred, seeing flashes of the people he cared about, twisted into grotesque masks of fear and malice. "Don't you want to join?" It beckoned, voice like broken glass. "We can be one. Forever." Without thinking, adrenaline surged through him. He shoved Sarah away from the figure, forcing her to move toward the kitchen exit as he faced the monster. Jake's chest ached, but he straightened up. "Get out!" The creature laughed, a sound that clawed at his sanity. "You can't protect her. You're the one they want." Jake's hands shook, but he could feel something stirring within him, a flicker of anger igniting off the fear. "I won't let you take her!" As the shadows swirled closer, ready to consume everything, he steeled himself. The knife glimmered in the moonlight. How far would he go to protect her? What darkness lay within him that could match this horror? Before he could find an answer, the entity lunged, engulfing him in terror. The world fell away into another scream, silent yet piercing, as Jake realized he might have to step into that darkness to fight. Would he become what he feared most, or could he claim the night as his own? A decision loomed, steeped in devastation. He could feel it. What choice would he make when the shadows closed in? Jake felt the world around him warp, time slowing as the figure lunged toward him. He swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through his veins like fire. The whispered voices crawled deeper into his mind, and for a moment he began to doubt himself. Could he really fight this horror? His grip tightened on the knife, slick with sweat, yet somehow it felt heavier than ever. The darkness crackled, a tangible entity of malice. The creature surged, throwing black tendrils that reached for his chest, clawing at his breath. Jake sidestepped, feeling the narrow escape tickle the back of his neck. He heard the sound of his own heartbeat, a terror drumming a frantic rhythm in his ears. "Jake!" Sarah's voice pulled him back, sharp and desperate, slicing through his panic. She was still at the kitchen entrance, paralyzed with fear. The sight of her, small, frail, ignited something deep within him. He couldn't let her see him falter. "Run, Sarah, now!" he yelled, turning his focus back to the figure that loomed just a step away, its shadow flickering and distorted around him. But she didn't move. She only stared at the entity, transfixed as its shape morphed before her eyes, twisting into grotesque echoes of familiar faces. His father, then their neighbor, then a friend from school, all distorted by fear. "Jake, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling, caught in a loop of horror. "They're not real," he shouted, forcing the words through tight lips. "Don't you see?" The creature laughed again, a sound that scraped against his sanity. "Let her see, Jake. Let her see how it ends." A wicked grin curled its mouth, and the air grew thick with dread. Jake lunged forward, slicing the knife through the air. It struck not flesh but shadow, dispersing briefly into black mist that quickly coalesced again, swirling around him like a tempest. He felt the knife vibrate in his grip, reverberating against the entity's presence. "Leave her alone," he roared, desperation fueling him. He stepped further into the darkness, embracing the fear that threatened to swallow him whole. "You want me? Fine. Come and get me." In that moment, he sensed the darkness quiver, a brief flicker of hesitation. Jake felt it in his bones. This wasn't just a physical battle. It was a war for his very soul. But the creature only smiled wider, teeth sharp and hungry. "Foolish boy," it hissed, taking a step back, circling him. The laughter intensified, now a cacophony that rattled in his skull, visions flashing of Sarah losing faith, of her turning into the kind whispering phrases of madness. Then, in the corner of his eye, he saw something shimmering, a sliver of light. Hope sprang up, a flicker of salvation that broke through the shadows, revealing the way to escape. "Mom!" Jake turned, moving back towards Sarah, reaching for her hand. "We can leave! Take my hand!" But she remained motionless, eyes fixated on the growing darkness. He felt a chill grip his heart as the shadow wrapped around her, whispering indistinct promises that twisted around her thoughts. "Sarah!" he screamed again, desperation crashing into a wave of raw terror. The laughter erupted into a frenzied roar, drowning out everything else. Suddenly, as if triggered by his voice, she blinked. Clarity flickered through her eyes. "Jake?" she gasped, as if breaking free from a waking nightmare. "Yes, grab my hand." Time stretched painfully as she hesitated, and in that moment, Jake realized he was not just fighting for their lives. He was battling against every shadow of doubt that threatened to consume them both. The figure lunged again, and Jake bolted, running toward his mother. The knife was forgotten as he pushed through the void, arms outstretched. But as they reached for each other, the darkness swallowed the space between them, roaring like a storm. The moment hung heavy. Jake could feel the entity's breath at his back, promising horror if they failed. Would they emerge from the jaws of despair, or would they be lost forever in the suffocating dark? As he stretched out, he could almost feel Sarah's fingers brush against his, but the shadows pulled tighter around them, and he realized the true fear wasn't just the darkness. It was the possibility of losing everything. What would they face together on the other side of that void? Would their bond survive the descent into nightmare? Time hung precariously in balance. Would they brave the abyss or become its ceaseless echoes? The choice loomed, darker than ever. The air around Jake was thick with an almost tangible darkness, suffocating him as he surged forward. He could feel the panic rising in his chest, squeezing tighter with every passing second. The shadows writhed, an endless tide, desperate to drag him back into their depths. "Jake!" Sarah's voice cut through the haze, reaching him like a lifeline. He focused on her, the intensity of her gaze pulling him back from the brink of despair. He could see her fight against the tendrils grabbing at her, her small frame trembling. "Hold on!" he shouted, charging through the void. He felt their connection, a thread tugged tighter by fear, and he wouldn't let it snap. But the darkness was relentless. It surged, crashing against him like waves against a rocky shore. Shadows clawed at his legs, drawing from his fear, hoping to anchor him in despair. Jake fought back, pushing onward, every ounce of strength dedicated to reaching Sarah. Momentum was everything. He couldn't falter. And then light. It was blinding, searing, illuminating the grotesque forms around him. The shadows hissed, recoiling in their dark cacophony. In that moment, the tide turned. He plunged through the final barrier, reaching out for Sarah's hand. Their fingers brushed. A fleeting moment that ignited a fire within him. He felt a surge of energy shoot through their connection, a pulse that seemed to light the dark. She grasped his hand, the warmth of her touch grounding him. In that instant, the entity's laughter morphed into a scream, a high-pitched wail of fury. "You think you can escape? I am your nightmares made flesh." The storm of darkness recoiled, pulling away like a beast cornered, gnashing its teeth and flailing in a fit of rage. "Run!" Jake shouted, yanking Sarah forward. Together they stumbled into the shimmering light, feeling the shadows claw at their backs in furious desperation. As they barreled ahead, the chilling wails faded to whispers, slipping away into the abyss. But safety was a cruel mirage. The light shifted, revealing a corridor that twisted and turned, stretching endlessly. It pulsed, breathing like a living thing, its brightness contrasting sharply with the dark lingering in the periphery. A sense of dread settled over them. "Where are we?" Sarah gasped, breathless and wide-eyed. Jake scanned the strange hallway, his mind racing. "I don't know, but we have to keep moving." He pushed forward, forced to confront the fear clawing at his insides. Each step felt heavier, like they were running through molasses. The walls whispered, old and whispering secrets that curled around them like smoke. Shadows danced, twisting into horrifying shapes, insinuating themselves between reality and nightmare. He could feel their gaze, weighing down his heart like lead. Ahead, a door materialized, ancient and gnarled, its surface carved with beaten faces, fear frozen in time. An ominous throb pulsed from within, calling to him as if it knew his deepest fears. He hesitated. "Jake." Sarah's voice trembled, a barely audible whisper. "What do you think is behind that door?" His mind raced back to the entity's words, its promises. "We need to know," he replied, holding her hand tighter against the creeping chill that threatened to break their bond. As he reached for the door, he sensed a presence behind him, the cold shadow that had pursued them now unmistakably close. The laughter rose again, echoing through the corridor, and in that instant, Jake felt the same doubt, gnawing at his resolve. Would they find salvation beyond the door, or yet another nightmare waiting to claim them? The handle turned slowly as Jake's heart raced. The door creaked open, a gust of wind rushing from the darkness within, welcoming them into the unknown. What lurked inside? Would they emerge as heroes of their own tale, or become the latest victims of a shadowed fate? They stepped over the threshold, uncertainty creeping in like the suffocating darkness that had chased them, the echoes of their own fears chasing them closer than ever. The door swung wide with a creak that reverberated through the corridor, an unsettling invitation to the unknown. Darkness spilled from the room, cloaking it in a thick veil that stung Jake's throat, making it hard to breathe. "What is this place?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely a breath, fear palpable in her tone. He couldn't answer. The shadows inside stirred, a mass of pulsing black that curled and shifted like a living organism. No solid ground, just a swirling void that beckoned them further in. The previously comforting light at their back was now a distant memory, swallowed by the deepening dark. "Jake!" Sarah's grip tightened on his hand, fingers trembling with dread. He felt her pulse, quick and frantic, an echo of his own elevated heart rate. He took a step inside, every instinct screaming at him to turn back, to not let curiosity drown them in terror. With each step into the abyss, a cold wind gusted from the void. It carried whispers, intimate words tinged with malice. They crawled into Jake's ears, laced with his regrets and fears. "You shouldn't have come," they taunted, echoing the entity's previous wail. "This is the end." Drawing in a sharp breath, he forced himself to move forward. If they could endure just a little longer, find a way out, something told him they would either escape or face the horrors that awaited them head-on. The room was vast, impossibly so. Shadows coalesced into shapes, snippets of memories, echoes of their lives twisted and grotesque. Jake glimpsed moments, secret fears, lost chances, quivering in the darkness, laughing at him. Among them loomed a figure, silhouetted and vast, its eyes gleaming like cold stars. "Welcome," it purred, voice drenched in honeyed malice. The distortion of reality made it hard to discern its form. Was it human or something else entirely? "Who are you?" Jake's voice quaked, his own bravery feeling thin. "I am the keeper of your truths, the whispered lies you've tucked away beneath the skin. Putrid secrets that gnaw at the conscience," it continued, stepping closer, and the very air seemed to lose warmth. "We're all haunted by something, Jake." He felt sick, the weight of its words suffocating him like the shadows. Each confession hung, spindly and fragile, pierced by his shame, shattering him into fragments. "Don't listen!" Sarah pulled him back, but her voice trembled under the weight of their fears. "Stay, embrace your darkness." The figure leaned closer, mouth twisting into a cruel smile. "Or you can try to escape, but who would you be without your fears? Nothing but a coward." "Sarah!" Jake cried out, but her eyes were wide with something more than terror, a twisted curiosity. "What if we face this together? What if it helps?" "No!" Panic surged through him. "We can't let it in." The shadows began to swirl again, growing thicker and more animated, clawing at their legs. The panic in his chest simmered as he struggled against the force pulling him towards the entity. Sarah's grip faltered for a moment as it whispered secrets to her, dark promises drenched in hope mingled with despair. "Remember the guilt, the anxiety," it crooned to her. "Embrace it. Find the strength." "Don't listen to it, please!" Jake shouted, feeling the shadows lurch, the darkness growing thicker as he fought to bring her back. But she hesitated, staring into the depths of her own fear. "Isn't it better to know?" she asked, voice trembling. The shadows morphed into familiar faces, their eyes judging, silently mocking. Jake couldn't breathe as he saw the weight of his life flash before him, countless mistakes branded into his heart. As he clawed through the suffocating mass, something primal surged within. He couldn't let Sarah give in to the dark. He took a deep breath and steeled himself to confront the entity. "Enough!" he roared, pulling Sarah closer, a lifeline amid the chaos. But the entity only laughed, its presence swelling as the shadows advanced, threatening to rip them apart. Then in an instant, a blinding light erupted from within him, clashing against the darkness. Jake felt an energy surge, a fierce, determined hope that could shatter illusions. "Follow me!" he shouted, turning on his heels, racing toward an exit he hoped lay behind the growing veil. But would this flickering light be enough to battle the darkness that threatened to extinguish them? Or was the entity waiting for their next misstep, ready to snatch back what little hope they had left? A crack in the surrounding void beckoned, but the dim, shining path was rapidly fading. Their escape teetered on the brink. With desperation coursing through his veins, Jake urged Sarah forward, each pounding heartbeat pulling them closer to fatal uncertainty. What awaited them on the other side? Would they find the truth, their salvation, or a new nightmare waiting to ensnare them? The crack widened, pulsating with an otherworldly glow that flickered like a dying star, and Jake felt the air crackle with charged energy. He barely sensed Sarah's hand slipping from his grip, the shadows pulling at her sides, drowning out her cries. "Sarah!" he called desperately, lunging for her, but the darkness enveloped her like a shroud, muting her fear. "Let go, Jake!" she screamed, her voice laced with sorrow as she was tugged backward. "We can't escape! We need to know!" "No, we can't!" His voice came out raw, splintering under the weight of helplessness. The shadows released a cacophony of discordant whispers, each word a sharp knife to his heart. "Don't let it fool you!" With a violent thrust, he lunged toward her, grasping her wrist just as it felt like she would disappear into the inky depths. The shadows screamed, a heart-wrenching wail that echoed like 1,000 broken souls, threatening to consume them both if he dared resist. "Fight it!" he shouted, pooling every ounce of strength he could summon. "Please, don't listen!" But she seemed entranced by the entity. The illusion of familiarity seeped into her gaze, offering dark revelations cloaked in the guise of ultimate truth. The figure leaned in closer, its voice dripping like venom. "See, Sarah? He only wants to keep you weak." "Jake!" Her eyes darted between him and the shadowy figure, confusion etching deeper lines into her brow. "What if facing this can free us? What if—" "Sarah, no!" He pulled her closer, desperation spiraling into panic. The shadows clawed at him, but he wouldn't let go. They faced the specters of their past, the swirling darkness, but he had to believe there was a way out. "Let's not do this. We fight together. Whatever this is, we beat it as one." His heart raced as their eyes locked, the flickering light of hope still burning in the distance. The entity chuckled softly, paralyzing dread coiling around Jake like a serpent, constricting with every breath. "Together? How quaint! You think this light is your salvation? It's nothing but a flicker of cowardice." Jake felt the pulse of darkness swell, brushing cold fingers along their skin. "Stop! You're lying!" "Am I?" Shadows crawled from the corners, writhing and whispering secrets meant to break their resolve. "What happened to the child you abandoned? The family you turned away from? It's all here." "Shut up!" Jake shouted, gritting his teeth as the memories poured forth, vivid and painful. Raw images flooded his mind, each moment a wound. But they were moments he chose to learn from, not drown in. "You won't win!" "Win?" The figure's voice twisted, echoing with a sadistic glee. "No, dear boy, I already have." And just like that, the shadows exploded outward, stretching their fingers like dark lakes swallowing the light whole. The exit flickered, pulsating weaker against the tumultuous tide of despair. Jake felt himself being pulled against the relentless current, Sarah's face a mask of turmoil, haunted by uncertainty. "Please!" he cried, but it was too late. The shadows coalesced, retreating into monstrous shapes, a hellish audience eagerly awaiting their downfall. Every step toward illumination became a battle against the pull of their deepest fears. "Sarah, focus on me!" He strained, but her gaze remained fixed. The darkness emitted a guttural laugh, barbed wires of treachery tightening around them. "I can't do this!" she finally cried, surrender coursing through her voice. "I need to know the truth." The entity surged forward, wrapping them in a cocoon of agony, shadows reshaping into visions of everything they ever feared. There was no escape. With a final, desperate shove, Jake forced himself through the mind-numbing waves of darkness, dragging Sarah with him, their breaths coming in frantic gasps. "Trust me!" he yelled, eyes locked on the glimmer that seemed so far away. But as they surged toward the light, its brightness flickered, wavering as if threatened by the encroaching shadows. Would they make it through? Or was the darkness ready to drag them down into the abyss, to gnaw at their souls until nothing remained? A moment of silence fell, the air heavy with suffocating dread, as Jake reached for that final ray of light. What horror awaited them if they should reach that glowing border? Would the truth be illuminating, or would it engulf their very souls in eternal darkness? The light dimmed, and Jake's heart raced as he realized, was it too late? The darkness roared, an echo that twisted Jake's gut and clawed at his sanity. He felt the oppressive weight of despair settle over him, cold and suffocating. He glimpsed the light flickering like a candle threatened by nothingness. "Sarah!" he shouted again, the urgency in his voice piercing through the malevolent whispers. Sarah's face distorted with anguish as the shadow licked at her edges, drawing her away, threatening to steal her forever. "Jake! Her voice trembled, fighting against the pull, but the darkness threw her into a deepening confusion. "Don't listen to it!" Jake shouted, feeling panic crawl up his back, heart pounding mightily in his chest. The chilling laughter surrounded them. It wrapped around him like barbed wire, each shrill note prickling his skin. "We can't let this thing win!" But with every surge toward the light, the shadows morphed, shifting into distorted shapes that branded his mind with guilt. They were twisted representations of his regrets, memories soaked in blood and tears. Faces from the past danced along the periphery. Those he had failed, those he had lost, carrying the burden of decisions he wished he could change. "No!" he shouted, shaking his head, fighting against the crushing pressure. "You're not real! None of this is real!" Yet the shadows only grew bolder, each pulse dragging them closer to the brink. "Embrace it!" they hissed, voices merging into a deafening chorus. "You wanted out, didn't you? This is the path to freedom." "Not like this," Jake yelled, knowing he had to hold on tighter to take Sarah with him. "I won't let it take you. We'll fight." His fingers clenched around her wrist like a vice, feeling the tremor of her doubt. But in that moment of desperate determination, Sarah's eyes glimmered with something darker. "Jake, what if they're right?" The question struck him like a thunderbolt. His grip faltered for a moment, dislodging the fabric of their bond. The shadows sensed it, surging forward, hungry to swallow her whole. "Don't you dare," he roared, narrowing his focus, heart pounding as if it might break free from his chest. "You have to fight." She wavered, her gaze faltering. "No, I need to know what's beyond this. I can't keep living like this." The entity laughed louder now, its form shimmering with triumph as it tightened its clutches on Sarah. "She's right, Jake. Knowledge is power. What awaits you is far greater than the pathetic remnants of your mundane life." The shadows swirled around her, wrapping like a cocoon, and Jake felt a surge of desperation. He had to act. He pulled Sarah closer, ignoring the sharp pang of memories flooding back every time he had walked away from the chance to confront his demons. He couldn't let them win now. "Please, Sarah," he pleaded, searching her eyes for any flicker of recognition. "Don't let them drown you in fear. Remember us. Remember why we started this." Her trembling subsided slightly, and a flicker of recognition sparked within her gaze. The shadows hissed ominously, their grip slackening for just a moment. "Fight them! Fight with me!" he yelled, the words spilling out, raw and desperation-stricken. Then, in a last burst of energy, Jake leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If we make it through this, we'll find a way to live without the weight of this darkness. But we have to want it, together." A strange light pulsed beneath the shadows, desperate for recognition. Would it be enough? And just as they seemed to draw closer to the light, a chilling scream ripped through the air. The entity's fury echoed, drowning everything out. "Fools! You don't know what you're asking!" The cocoon of shadows twisted violently, pushing back, threatening to break them apart. "Let's end it! One last push!" Jake yelled, years of pain screaming to escape, chasing away doubt. "Together!" Sarah's voice was firmer now, the darkness quaking under the renewed determination. But as they surged forward with all their strength, Jake felt the shadows snatching at his legs, clawing, trying to drag him down into the abyss. What if they reached the light only to discover a darkness beyond comprehension? Would they emerge whole, or would they be consumed? The bitter cold of doubt coursed through him, threatening to break their resolve just as they approached the edge. Was this light only the prelude to a larger nightmare? The air thickened as the final leap approached, uncertainty hanging heavy, a moment that could either save them or shatter everything they thought they knew. Was the truth within the light worth facing, or would the chilling secrets rip them apart, irrevocably? The swirling shadows were a storm, each tendril clawing at Jake and Sarah as they surged forward, bound by desperation. With every step, the void crackled, the echoes of the past consuming them like hungry flames. But they held on, to each other, to hope, and to the flickering light ahead. "Now!" Jake shouted, clutching Sarah's hand tighter, a lifeline in the crushing darkness. The light pulsed, brighter and warmer, drawing them closer like a beacon cutting through the night. "Together!" they shouted in unity, pushing through the suffocating waves of despair, their resolve igniting a flame within. The cacophony of whispers turned to screams. A blend of rage and hopeless laughter surged behind them. The shadows recoiled, twisting and writhing. Yet their own fears loomed larger than life. Memories flashed before Jake, moments of doubt, shame, and the weight of his past decisions that pressed heavy against his chest. Sarah, too, bore the burden of her fears, the darkness whispering lies that wrapped around her thoughts, threatening to sever their bond. "Not now!" Jake yelled against the oppressive weight. "You'll never break us. We're stronger together." With that, they lunged toward the light. The gap closed in a heartbeat, the glowing exit whispering promises of freedom. Blood pulsated in their veins, each beat a drum echoing the urgency of their flight. Shadows shrieked, a symphony of terror unraveling in their wake, clawing to pull them back into the abyss. But as they neared the light, Sarah hesitated, her grip faltering, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The shadows wrapped tighter around her, whispering their venomous lies. "Stay. You'll find all the answers here. Liberation lies in surrender." "Don't listen!" Jake strained against the pull, desperation flooding his every word. "Remember what we fought for. We can't lose now." Something broke inside of Sarah, the fear illuminating the depth of her love for Jake, anchoring her amidst the chaos. "No." She shook her head fiercely, a light igniting within her gaze. "We won't succumb to this." The two surged forward, their hearts racing toward the light, every step a battle cry against the dark. With one final push, they hurled themselves into the brilliance, a collision of fear and courage engulfing them entirely. As they passed through the threshold, an explosion of warmth enveloped them. They fell into a kaleidoscope of color, spiraling and soaring as sunlight erupted around them. The world shifted, the shadows retreating chaotically behind them, dissolving into oblivion. Then, silence. They landed softly on familiar grass, the sun illuminating their faces, washing fears away. Ahead of them stood their neighborhood, a clear blue sky stretching infinitely. The horrors they had faced faded like a forgotten nightmare, leaving only echoes behind. Jake turned to Sarah, disbelief mixed with relief. "Did we make it? Are we free?" Sarah beamed, her eyes sparkling like jewels. "I think we are. We faced the darkness. Together." Laughter bubbled up between them, light and sweet, a balm for their shared wounds. The oppressive shadows no longer loomed over their lives. Instead, an invigorating sense of belonging ignited within their hearts. They were a family again. Yet, amidst joy, Jake felt a weight, an understanding that shadows would return. Not all battles could be slipped away from. But those moments of darkness equipped them with strength and clarity, forging a resolution that would hold, come what may. "Whatever happens next, we won't face it alone," Jake promised, wrapping his arms tightly around Sarah, grounding in the reality of warmth and love. As they stood there, consumed in the embrace of freedom, the sun shone bright, inviting them to take that next step into a new day, unafraid of shadows. But the echo of a sinister laughter lingered softly in the distance. Together, always. In that moment they knew. The fight might not be over, but they had emerged from the abyss changed, resilient, and ready to face whatever haunted secrets lay ahead. If you enjoyed this thrilling finale, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share the love, and flood the comment section with your reactions and wild theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to dive into the discussion. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Do it for the true fans who understand the importance of supporting our journey together.